All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Lesson 4, Language Development Theories. Hope you are ready for a romp through 4 theories. The way that I've structured it for this lecture is that I'm going to kind of give an overview of the theory as a theory and then pull it tight into why are we looking at this theory in particular around language development. So that's kind of how I've formulated and formatted this particular lecture. I did make a reference to Dr. Anza Hamid from the National University of Modern Languages. I did take a lot of her examples, and she just had a really great synopsis, particularly around language development. So I just wanted to put a nod to her work. Okay, so in our collaborate time, excuse me, in our collaborate time, be ready to brain dump as much info from your brain without looking back at your notes as you can about these 4 theories that we're going to look at today. So I want you to, it's a retrieval practice where you are retrieving without any kind of visual aid. So it's just, you're going to just with a partner, you're just going to have a chat and brain dump as much as you can. But just be ready for that. And then do be ready to discuss all the readings, and you can use your notes on this. But make sure that you have those readings. There's some YouTube clips done for Thursday. Thursday? Yes, whenever our collaborate class is. Okay, so basically the foundation, now we're just going to jump into the theories here. The foundation of language development debate depends on nature versus nurture versus some kind of a combination of nature and nurture. So nature is that that you are born with it innately, that it's part of your nature's, part of your genetics of how you take in language. Nurture is all about the external. So what is influencing you from beyond, and how is that impacting your language development? And then, of course, as with any theory, there's always a bit of a combination where you kind of live in the middle. So again, be thinking for you about which theory seems to be the best fit for you as an individual and a future teacher, because we're going to look at this in the next lesson. Is these theories are alive and well in school, and so you need to know what these theories are in order to, again, not be rudderless in the classroom. So I like this particular cartoon. A father looking at his new child saying, so how do you want to play this? Nature, nurture, a bit of both. Again, just to get us rolling here. Okay, so these are the 4 major theories on language acquisition: behaviorism, nativism, cognitive approach, and then the interaction approach. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Okay, so let's jump into behaviorism. So behaviorism is basically change in behavior. I'm just going to read some of these. Change in behavior occurs in response to the consequences of the prior behavior. So you've heard about the rats they learn to press the lever to get the food. Well, the rats don't initially press down the lever. They have to get the food, they have to repeat it. And so a behaviorist is saying there's a change in behavior occurs in response to consequences of prior behavior. So they have to be rewarded and all those things to change the behavior. Okay, so behaviorism is not really actually that concerned with what's actually going on in the mind. It's all about the external. It's all about the nurture. It doesn't seek to explain, nor does it ever really say that's an important part, is to know what's going on in the child's brain when they're learning language. It is only about the external action. Okay, so the proponents of behaviorism are Skinner, Pavlov, Benter. You probably heard of these dudes. They're kind of big in behaviorism. It's very popular in the 1950s and 1960s. And basically, the principle is language learning is a kind of behavior similar to other human behavior. Language is learned in much the same way as anything else is learned. So behaviorists would say children learn language the way that they learn to ride a bike. If they ride the bike and they fall off, they go, okay, that hurt. Then they jump back on and maybe they do something different. So it's all about behavior. Again, this is very nurture inspired. It's all very concerned about observable behavior. What is the child? What is happening that we can actually observe? It's the idea of tabula rasa, and I like how that text is basically thinking that the child, when they appear in the world as newborn babies, those babies are blank slates, that they come needing to be filled. I watched a PBS commercial one time, and it was this cartoon character, and the head flipped open, and all this stuff, obviously from PBS, floated in. And I went, wow, that is tabula rasa. That's the concept of the child is empty, and that it is our job to fill the child. Any of you who have dealt with the children, especially maybe your own or nieces or nephews, you might be saying, no, each kid comes with their own personality. If you're a behaviorist, you would say that comes from the nurture part, that comes from the family, that comes from how the child has been raised. So again, start to go, yeah, that absolutely resonates with me, or no, that doesn't resonate with me at all. Okay, so this is a funny story that I talked to my daughter about, that I was introducing this, and she sent me this story, and it's called the goat pee story. So I apologize if you're offended by the word pee. This is the story. My mom tried to teach our goats to pee in one certain spot by giving them treats when they'd peed in that spot. Except that they think now whenever they pee, they get a treat. So whenever they see my mom, they pee. Laughed for a solid 5 minutes. Behaviorism gone wrong. Pavlov is laughing in his grave. Okay, so that's behaviorism in there. Okay, let's look at some classical conditioning terms. Now, classical conditioning, this is all about actually trying to change. Classical conditioning is changing the behavior. So we're going to get into operant conditioning later, but classical is about changing the behavior. Hopefully you looked at the Khan Academy article. If you haven't done that, go and do that right now. Go look at that article, because I'm going to use their example right here. So stop if you haven't. If you have, just keep on going. Okay, so I'm just going to use their example, maybe frame it in a little bit of a different way. So Jamie loves peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Whenever Jamie gets the snack, Jamie is happy and does a happy dance. So this is the response. Jamie is just like, woohoo, excited about peanut butter. It's not a learned response. It's just how Jamie responds to peanut butter and jelly, because he just loves peanut butter and jelly. Okay, so Jamie's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches always comes on the same plate, the one that is orange and has a picture of a tiger on it. So that's important to remember. So Jamie dances, which is an unconditioned response, because he just dances it automatically, because that's what you do when you're happy. So these two kind of are very similar. Response and unconditional response. Unconditional response is that it's to a particular behavior. Okay, so just so that you know, conditioned response and response are basically the same thing, but you'll see sometimes just response, and then sometimes you'll see unconditioned response, and just know that they're basically the same thing. Okay, so Jamie dances, which is the unconditioned response, because that's what you do when you're happy, when Jamie sees the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which is the unconditioned stimulus. Okay, so there's no reason why the particular peanut butter sandwich makes him dance, other than he just loves peanut butter. And so there's no sort of teaching that's happened here. This is just Jamie's response. Now it gets interesting. The plate, which starts off as a neutral stimulus, because, the plate does not naturally make Jamie want to dance. But when it's paired with the sandwich, it becomes paired with the sandwich because it always comes together. Okay, so then it changes to be a conditioned stimulus. So now Jamie's conditioned to go, oh, when I see the plate, that means I'm going to get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, peanut butter and jam sandwich. Okay, and then that ultimately is paired with Jamie wanting to dance, which is basically the conditioned response, which then ultimately Jamie learns, so that's the key. He's learned to connect the plate with the feelings of happiness and will ultimately dance when Jamie just sees the plate, even with no sandwich. Okay. So that's classical conditioning. Again, know that response and unconditional response, I just wanted you to know that sometimes you'll see response and sometimes you'll see unconditional response, and they're basically the same thing in there. Okay, so that's a romp through classical conditioning. Let's take a look at operant conditioning now. Okay, so operant conditioning, these are kind of, you want to think about the consequences which come after a behavior. So this is not, where am I here? Classical conditioning is you're trying to condition the behavior. Operant conditioning is what happens after the behavior. So basically, after a behavior, there is I'm going to do this. There's I think I can do it. There's reinforcement, which is a response or consequence that causes a behavior to occur with greater frequency. So you're reinforcing it, so you want that behavior to be more frequent. Or there is a punishment, which is where you want the behavior to occur with less frequency. Now, on both sides, you can have positive and negative. So on both sides, this kind of gets a little confusing in here. So a positive means you're adding a stimulus. So you're adding a stimulus here. Negative means you're removing the stimulus. But you can have a punishment where you are adding a stimulus, and you can also have a punishment where you are. So negative does not mean punishment, and positive does not just necessarily mean reinforcement. Under reinforcement, you can have positive, negative. Under punishment, you can have positive, negative. And then hopefully, under positive, the behavior will increase. Under negative, the behavior increases. Okay, and the behavior, because that's ultimately in reinforcement is you want the behavior to increase, and in punishment, it decreases under both. Okay, let me now give you an example. So if I am trying to get you as my students to do your APA correctly, this is what will happen depending on how you do your APA, maybe on your first assignment, in hopes that you will do it correctly in the future. So I'm trying now. You've handed in some assignments. APA hasn't been great. Now I'm trying to help you correct your APA. So if I was to use positive reinforcement, I would praise you in class. I would give you a nice comment on your paper. So I am reinforcing, and I am adding something. I'm adding something to it. I could, as a negative reinforcement, I could say, oh, since you did your APA so well on your first 2 assignments, you actually don't have to do your final assignment. So you can see that I'm taking away something, but it would still be hopefully motivating for you to do your APA perfectly on your first 2 assignments. Okay. On the other side, on punishment side, a positive punishment is I could set up an apparatus that when your paper has an incorrect APA, it gives you a mild electric shock. That would be kind of fun. Maybe I should try that. So that's a positive. I'm adding something in. I'm adding in a shock when you do not do your APA correctly. Your negative is, I might say, I'm going to actually take away your Friday evening time with your friends, and you need to spend a little seminar time with me and with other derelict APA students. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking away your free time and making you come and spend your free time that you would normally spend with your friends with me. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad punishment. Anyways, so hopefully that gives you a sense of I just want to make sure that negative does not necessarily mean punishment. You can have positive and negative punishment and positive and negative reinforcement. Okay, let's keep on going. Now, what I want you to do is you should be aware of these experiments as education students. These are sort of foundational experiments that were done in like the 1950s. And the Watson and Baby Albert experiment I find a little frightening, but it's, again, just good for you to see what was going on in theory and research. So stop the video now and watch this video. You can watch the whole thing if you want, but for sure watch these times here. And again, be ready to talk about this in our collaborate time. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. It's kind of a little disturbing, but again, it's just good for you to have a sense of what that is. Again, the same thing here. You should be aware of this Bender's Bobo doll experiment. So basically, I'm just going to read you a little bit of a background of what this experiment was in behaviorism. In 1961, Bender conducted a study to investigate if social behaviors, so things like aggression, can be acquired by observation and imitation. Okay, so Bandura, Ross and Ross, who are his colleagues, tested 36 boys and 36 girls from the Stanford University Nursery School between the ages 3 and 6. The researchers pre-tested the children for how aggressive they were by observing the children in the nursery and judged their aggressive behavior on four 5-point rating scales. Okay? So I want you to now, again, stop me and go and watch this video. Again, it's just, I think, important for you as education students to have watched this original footage. Okay, go enjoy. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too disturbing. It's kind of interesting and that's where behaviorism lies, is that children are watching and being reinforced in a behavior, and then they imitate. Okay, so that's the whole premise of behaviorism in there. Okay, so let's have a look at now we're going to bring it down to language development. Why are we even talking about behaviorism in a language development class? Basically, is the way that a behaviorist would say that we learn language is that we imitate language. So think about babies or young children. They're imitating our language. They're copying our words. They're listening, they're seeing, and they're copying our words. So there's an imitation of language. Hopefully then there's reinforcement of that language. So, so think about when your baby first says, "Mom," great excitement, right? Great excitement about, "Oh, my child said mom," blah, blah, blah. That's positive reinforcement. There's been a lot of hoopla. So the child goes, "Oh, if I say this strange sound, I get this amazing response from the one who I love." And so then there's that reinforcement, and then ultimately habit formation. So the child keeps repeating. So that's what a behaviorist would say, is that that's how we develop language, is we imitate, we copy something, and then we are reinforced positively or negatively, and then we form a habit. We form a habit around that. Okay, I want to say, why do you think children learn that they learn how to swear? Now, this is an interesting concept. Think about when your 3-year-old in your life swears. What kind of reaction is there? Usually there's like a tittering and laughing and, oh, honey, don't do that. But there's all these big smiles on your face and body language is saying, oh, that was really cute. So they imitate the language that maybe they've heard from, an uncle or a neighbor, not you, of course. Then it's reinforced by all of the adults reacting, and then they form the habit. They go, okay, if I say this swear word, or if I say this word, it's reinforced positively, and then I'm going to keep doing it. So that's, I think, why kids, according to behaviorists, that's why children actually learn to swear quite early in their life. Okay, one last thing around behaviorism. So there are, of course, for any of these theories, there are criticisms of behaviorism. So on the language development side, they would say that there's an overemphasis on the external factors, like of parents to provide a model of imitation. So they're saying, if you're a critic of behaviorism, you're like, wow, not every parent talks to their child with the particular intent for the child to learn the language from what they're saying. So they're saying this, that's just, there's an overemphasis on those external factors. They also, big critics would say, you ignore the internal factor, the role of the learner, which basically behaviorists are like, it's all just about the outward. It doesn't really matter what's going on in the brain of the child. There's an overemphasis on the role of imitation. Again, children aren't limited to the vocab and the sentence structure that they hear from parents, right? They put sentences together. They grab vocab that's not particularly taught to them. And basically they ignore that children use language creatively, not just repeat what they have heard, so that they actually start to play with the language. And so critics would say it's much more than just imitation. It's them actually engaging cognitively with the language. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to do the other 3 in a different video, just so you can maybe stop and compile your thinking on behaviorism, and then we'll jump into the other 3 in a different video.